Hello everyone, welcome to another monthly game video. I'm going to do it cozy style this time and talk about the games that interest me and whether I think they'll be worth your time. We've now hit the 1 year anniversary of me covering games on this channel, and much like that video back then, the month of May is just crazy packed with indie games, some of which could end up in my top 25 by the end of the year. So let's get right down to business. Despelote is a narrative adventure game about soccer and growing up in Ecuador, and it's been winning all sorts of pre-release awards like the Tribeca Festival mention, being selected by Day of the Devs, it won an Independent Games Festival award, and so I really do think this is going to be something quite special. I don't know if it's necessarily for me, even as someone who loves narrative games, but I think this one will be a definite shoo-in for that Games for Impact category of the Game Awards when we get towards the end of the year. Free Ride is another narrative game, although this is more of an RPG. The big hook of it is that the whole thing is like a personality test. They had this little demo prologue thing that showed you a couple of choices to make, and then it told you what your personality type was. And at the time, the gameplay was just kind of like running around talking to people, so it's hard to say exactly what the full game is going to be, but it does look like it has a lot of personality and quirkiness to it. The one thing I kind of remember about the game is that you can sort of telekinetically pick up objects and throw them, kind of like that Crystal Bearers game for the Wii. According to the store page, you're only going to see a third of the full game in each playthrough, so that could be interesting, especially if it's a shorter game. It might make me more inclined to go and play through it again. Shotgun Cop Man is a very ludicrous looking platformer with silly visuals by the developer of My Friend Pedro. It's one of those games where you use your gun to propel yourself like a double jump or a jump extender. And while My Friend Pedro had a lot more stunting to it, like more John Woo to it, this is more like pure precision rage platformer. Maybe not too ragey, but I could see you replaying levels a lot in this. Maze Mice is basically Pac-Man roguelite. You're basically running around the board collecting crystals, and kind of like in Vampire Survivors, each time you get enough gems you'll level up and get to pick a new perk, and whenever you stop, everyone else stops, kind of like Super Hot. I played the demo for this, and I'm not sure if there's enough heat on this one. Like, I played the demo for a pretty long time, mostly because I hadn't died, not because I was super into it. Also, looking at the game's early access description, it doesn't look like they're gonna be adding any new levels, just characters. And I don't know, I feel like you need to change the level layout because there's just not enough meat on this one for me as is. Captain Blood is this long-lost Xbox 360 game that was brought out of cancellation by General Arcade. Like, it sort of kind of looks like a knockoff of God of War or even like Marlow Briggs. But since it's a pirate game, there's also some ship sailing and boarding other ships and fighting people. But, you know, this is a game from the 2000s that has come back, and they've only put like a minor bit of sheen and polish on it. It's still an Xbox 360 era game in every way, so if you're in the mood for that, that could be good for you. But I'd like to think we moved on from that era for a good reason. While I'm not super interested in playing Among Us 3D, I am super interested in seeing whether it's successful. Or I guess a better way to phrase it would be, will it be more successful than the original? They've done a mostly good job of converting the very Newgroundsy art style into 3D, but I do wonder, since there are all these other first-person co-op horror games, like Repo and Lethal Company and Content Warning and Phasmophobia and all those, that Among Us 3D almost feels like it's a little late to the game. But I mean, the original was a phenomenon, so I can't count out that this one will be a success too. There are a couple of survival games where you have a moving base, like Survival Machine and Rail Gods of Hystera. One is more kind of low poly cutesy, and the other is very like Lovecrafty, Diablo, isometric. I think if I were given a review key for either game, I think Survival Machine would be the one that I would play, even though those character models look a little synty to me, and I'm not a huge fan of the Cinti mania that's sweeping indie games all over. But, moving your base, collecting resources, building your base up more, that does appeal to me, so I'm curious to see how they do with the game. Creature Keeper is kind of this combination of Pokemon and Pikmin, where you roam around the world collecting animals to fight alongside you, and you yourself are not the most powerful, so you do need to rely on your companions to fight your battles with you and do a lot of the killing. I don't think this one ever had a demo, so I can only go off vibes based off of what I see in the trailer footage and the various images that they've shared, but it seems kind of decently systems heavy, and the art style is cute, so it could be pretty good. It's just kind of hard for me to judge when I don't have my hands on any kind of vertical slice myself. Revenge of the Savage Planet, I really don't know. So the original Savage Planet game was this first-person Metroidvania that I really liked, except for the full motion video acting, which I think was too self-aware bad. But I liked climbing up and getting new abilities and harvesting stuff to get those new abilities. But the sequel seems to be third person and more co-op focused, and they're tripling down on the kind of cringy full motion video. Normally I love full motion video, but the way they did it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Now, I'd ask for a review key for this game, but since the former studio head claimed that streamers should be paying them for the right to stream their games, I don't think that's gonna happen. Midnight Special is a homage to Clock Tower and point-and-click adventure games, and it's got a really nice aesthetic to it, but I found the controls to be a bit clunky and some of the dialogue needed a bit sprucing up. It's also launching in early access, and I kind of find that weird for a point-and-click adventure game. Point-and-click adventure games are not that long to begin with, so I feel like if you buy it now, you're essentially just getting a demo. And I mean, you'll get the full game eventually, but it just doesn't seem like there's a reason to buy it now. At least wait to see if they improve the dialogue and the controls first. Cash Cleaner Simulator is really weird. Now, this is a simulator that doesn't have a whole lot of jank to it. It's actually pretty polished as far as those go. But this is one of the few rare simulators where I didn't actually feel super pulled into the gameplay loop. You wake up in this underground vault with no memory, and your kidnapper gives you all these jobs where cash flies down from a ceiling pipe, and your job is to prepare it and deliver it for a certain client. So sometimes you'll need to clean it, sometimes you'll need to count it in a specific way. Some clients want very specific styles of money, like they want it wet. So, there is some quirkiness to the game. I just don't know if what they have is compelling enough. Rift Riff is this sort of charming little take on tower defense where the maps are very small and the rounds are kind of short, but there's still plenty of strategy involved. I like the game's very minimalist, clean aesthetic, and between each stage you'll usually get a brand new type of tower or passive perk. I don't think it's going to be on any best of lists by the end of the year, but it does seem like it's going to be a nice palate cleanser game. Chambers is a new boomer shooter RPG, and it's by Mr. Pink. And if you know who Mr. Pink is, then you know that it's gonna be crazy. If you don't know who Mr. Pink is, he made this game called Golden Light, which is sort of this cursed prop hunt roguelite shooter. And the guy has also made various games for Dread XP anthologies and Haunted demo discs. He's someone with a very confident style. And I think this is going to be another one that collects a very passionate fan base of dedicated freaks. Similarly, Labyrinth of the Demon King will probably also find a few freaks. It's this lo-fi dungeon crawling game with a lot of melee focus, and it's just got this crunchy, gritty, nasty style. I could definitely see it appealing to people who like Kingsfield and Lunacid, and there's also going to be some survival horror elements to it and puzzles, so I'm hoping that this turns out good, because it's definitely one that I would like to play. Weirdly, the game that I don't want to play is the new Doom. Now, I have Doom 2016 and I have Doom Eternal, and I'm not going to deny that the new Dooms are fun, but as someone who played the original Doom a long time ago and recently replayed them for the remasters, I want something different out of Doom than what it is making. What made Doom special for me was its intricately designed, interconnected maze maps, and I've always felt like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal were striving for more of a Quake 3 PvP but single player vibe. And what I mean by that is all these combat encounters happen in arenas, and the arenas feel very much like multiplayer maps. Now I do like having an arena that has a lot of verticality to it and fun traversal while fighting enemies, but I've never been a huge fan of closed gated encounters. I think I first encountered it with the Shadow Warrior remake in 2013, and I was like, ugh, no, don't like it, don't. I want to be able to choose whether I engage with an enemy or not, and sort of have that risk reward of, do I go for the glory kill and risk getting killed, or do I just avoid the encounter and conserve my health? The second half of Doom 2016 in particular got so linear. Now, the Dark Ages is promising kind of more of an open world, but that also is not what I'm looking for. Again, I want that maze feel, and especially like switching between melee and ranged weapons. I don't know, it feels like a different game that Doom is being grafted onto. But as always, with the games that I'm not interested in playing, I hope other people find them and enjoy them. Cubic Odyssey is apparently No Man's Sky Minecraft, and that's definitely ambitious for an indie developer to try to do. I mean, it does help that all the visuals are cubes, but still, it's a lot of systems you gotta build together. This is another one where I'm not sure if it's necessarily for me, because when I played No Man's Sky, I found it kind of tedious and boring by the second half, but that may just come down to the game design itself. I think that anyone making a game like this needs to keep the gameplay varied and interesting all the way through, whereas No Man's Sky's original campaign had a lot of errands and fetch questing, and it just wasn't that interesting. Nitro Express I've talked about before. It's this very Neo Geo inspired action shooter, and I feel like they really nail the feel of a 90s arcade game. I just think that they didn't need to emulate the slowdown so accurately. Now maybe they'll tone it down a bit for the full release, and I hope that they do, because I really did enjoy the demo, but if the gameplay is going to be chugging the whole time, then I'm probably going to bounce. Pup Chance is one that I think I only briefly mentioned in the Next Fest video. It's this cute puzzle game by the maker of Golf Peaks, where you're a coach getting all these kids together to play soccer, and each character has a limited amount of moves, and their shot arcs are different as well. It's a game for all ages, so they'll show you the shot arcs as you play, but it still strikes me as a game that could get very devious as it goes on. I think it looks very cute, I think some of the hazards are interesting, and I'm always a fan of wholesome games that have some teeth to them, so I think that Pup Champs is going to be a winner. I think that the game I'm most looking forward to in March, though, is Cathy Rain 2. Now, this is one I raved about in the Next Fest video, and it's just such a good-looking game. Now, Old Skies just came out from Wajidai, and I've heard a lot of great things about it, but I mean, it's not a competition, and I'm sure Dave Gilbert would agree that this game is insanely beautiful. I like any game that has notes that you use in your investigation, and I'm hoping that this mystery will have a satisfying outcome, and also that maybe the puzzles aren't quite as tedious as the one with the fan. But if there's no other moments like that, then I think I'm gonna really love this game. Roadcraft is the next game by the people who made SnowRunner and MudRunner, and there's a bit more of like a cleanup and renovation feel to it, and so I feel like this time they finally made one that appeals to me. The past games have been sort of loosely compared to Death Stranding, and that the traversal is very realistic and you have to deal with physics constantly, as well as charting an optimal route, and that stuff's cool, but I think it's what you do when you actually get to your destination that is interesting to me here. And just this idea of like slowly making the area better and more accessible is something that really like taps into something in my brain. Cauldron I've talked about before, and it's one that I will get a review key of later on. It's this cute incremental game where you start off with a really small playing area, and you expand it out by fighting in turn-based RPG battles. But the actual upgrading of your party happens through lots of idle game behavior and minigames. And these minigames start off very simple, but as you spend into the upgrade trees, they become very ridiculous looking. And as you throw more stuff into the cauldron, you'll unlock new features and increased automation, and just everything feeds into each other wonderfully. I think this is one that will be kind of a sleeper hit. The game that I'm the least sure about would be Fantasy Life I, and that largely comes down to the fact that it's by level 5. Now, I love the original Fantasy Life, I played a ton of it on the 3DS, but I just trust this developer as far as I can throw them. They've had money problems, and a lot of their games have had issues in the second half, and I can't forget forget that the previous Fantasy Life was this awful mobile-only free-to-play game. I don't know, maybe they'll win me back, but I'm very skeptical at this point. Deliver at All Costs is this sort of mix of Blast Core and Crazy Taxi, where you're given cargo and you have to make it to your destination without losing it, all while causing all sorts of destruction and mayhem along the way. Now, I haven't played the demo of this, but I have watched other people play it, and I'd say that some missions are better suited to this world than others. I think that any mission where you have to drive carefully and slowly kind of goes against the principles of this chaotic world, and so I hope there are still missions where you don't have to worry about stuff falling out and you can just focus on destruction and chaos and avoiding enemies and all that stuff. I covered the first Duck Detective game in the Game of the Year video last year, and they have a new one already, which makes me a little conflicted because I also feel like, as someone who's played a lot of mystery games where all the cases are brought together, I kind of feel like you could have had a Duck Detective game that has multiple cases in it. But I don't know, maybe this game needed funding from the other game's revenue to get made. Still, I like it as a golden idol for kids, and I think that if you have kids and they love the first game, then they'll certainly like this one too. But if you yourself are looking for something to really scratch your brain, I don't think these games are going to do it for you. They're a little too cozy and easy. Onimusha 2 is pretty cool that it exists. I like a remake that treats it similarly to the Quake remasters, where it envisions it how you remembered it rather than how it actually was. And so it's not a full-on Resident Evil 4 remake kind of situation. And that suits me just fine because I like the dynamic static camera angles and the pre-rendered backgrounds. You know, for me, this is how I like to see games be remastered, and I wish that we could see more like this. Another one I talked about in the Next Fest video was Haneda Girl, which is by the Narita Boy developers, and that game I didn't super love, but I do like this one because it's so intense and fast. You have both a girl and her mech, and obviously the mech is this strong tank, where the little girl is stealthy and fragile, and you need to attack people from behind. I think that there's just enough meat on these bones to have substance to go with the style, but I do worry that the aesthetic of this game will create some visual fatigue if they can't make the different levels look different from each other, but I can definitely see this game at a GDQ. Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo is this really fun Game Boy Advance inspired yo-yo Zelda game. It's by the developer of Dodgeball Academia, which is another game I really loved, and I just really like the mechanics and the room by room puzzles, and I think this will be my favorite Zelda style game this year. Now, I've asked for a review key for this one, but we'll see if I actually get one. Fuga Melodies of Steel just kind of marches forward as a series regardless of its sales, and I can't help but admire CyberConnect 2 for doing that. They clearly really love this setting established in Tail Concerto, and it seems like every other project they do just keeps the lights on so they can keep making games like this. And I'm sure that 3 will be another really interesting one, mixing the despair with the comical, and of course, sacrificing children to shoot out of your cannon, like it's freaking Rocket Slime. I hope that Nice Day for Fishing doesn't suffer the same fate as a lot of Team 17 indie games and actually sees a lot of sales success. The game takes place in this MapleStory style MMO, where all of the players have been booted out by a glitch, and an NPC fisherman ends up becoming the hero, and all of the battling is just fishing. They sort of take the fishing gameplay that you've seen in stuff like Stardew Valley, and they make it a little simpler and a lot more fun to play, and you also get cooldown abilities to help you even further. I also really like that all of the bosses are just fished to death. I think I played the Nice Day for Fishing demo probably the longest out of any of the demos that I played. It just had a really juicy gameplay loop, and though the quest design does get kinda fetchy, it at least is fish fetchy, so it's not like you weren't going to do that anyway. And I like being to fish up treasure chests and find really powerful gear in them. And last but not least is the Elden Ring spin-off Nightreign. If you've been living in a cave, this is sort of a roguelite experience, and it is very co-op focused. For me, someone that always struggled with Souls-like games, I think Elden Ring is the one that I unequivocally loved. But Nightreign is not really for me personally. You know, I think what I liked about Elden Ring was that open world ability to kind of sneak my way around and encounters and get just a little bit stronger than recommended so that I had an easier time of fighting some of the bosses, and just mapping out the world in general. And I don't really know if that kind of stuff is sort of what Nightreign is focused on, and that's fine. You know, this is for people who have already fully exhausted Elden Ring from top to bottom. But I do expect it to be a bit more polarizing, much like their upcoming game, The Duskbloods. And I'm sure there will be plenty of articles like, has From Software lost it? And then they'll put out Dark Souls 4 or something and get 100 Metacritic or whatever. With this one, I'm just gonna watch other people play it and enjoy it vicariously through them. So that's just a smattering of games from this month, and there are of course many, many more, like The Siege and the Sandfox, Cattle Country, Monster Train 2, Pixel Shire, Spirit of the North 2, Yes Your Grace, Snowfall, To a T from the Katamari Damacy guy, and Bygone Dreams. I'm really excited for this month. If there's anything that you're excited about, definitely talk about it in the comments below. I just turned 41 today, and I thought, how better to spend my birthday than to do work? But I mean, you know, it's fun work. I get to talk about games. And I can do that thanks to my indie darlings. Rob Ska, Tyler McBride, Nick Shalark, Tony Domenico, and Game Trekker, as well as everyone else on the Patreon that chips in. I cannot stress it enough. I only get to talk about what I want to talk about because of Patreon. If I didn't have your support, I'd just have to do algorithm chasing nonsense. So if you want unique takes on things that are not driven to please a black box, go to my Patreon at patreon.com/MattJWilson and donate $1 or a couple of bucks, whatever you want. It's perfectly fine. And if you don't have money, that's perfectly fine too. Just spread the word. I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you next time. Until then, you'll find me in another castle.